Keep your eyes closed and just recognize this moment. Just see what is here. And see if you can be aware of this whole experience. You are no longer a someone trying to be aware. You just recognize. You come back to the simple recognition of this moment. Just notice what is here. And in this awareness of the experience is also the awareness of the sense of I. And whatever that is attached to in this moment. The sense of I can be the sense of the body. The sense of I can be connected to thoughts somehow. The idea of the person. But you're not looking for an answer when you're looking at the I. You're looking at the source of it. Just recognizing what this first expression is. Just stay here. Stay with that sense of I. If it feels too abstract, you ask the question, who am I? Look for the source of it. Look for the first expression of I. Because if it can be observed, there is something prior to I, and there is not. Even if there is some thoughts coming or emotional content or whatever happening, you come back to this sense of I. See where keeping your attention here takes you. What is the recognition of I beyond the intellectual answer? What is it on the level of experience? What is the source of consciousness? What is the source of this experience? If the mind tries to grasp it, it will go into identity. But if you just allow it to be, you can just recognize it. Because it doesn't belong to intellectual capacity, it belongs to experience. It belongs to this moment, to the now. If you get lost in thoughts, you come back to recognizing the I. And if you need to, you again ask a question. Who am I? Or who is having this experience? And you try to find the source of it. See what it is. What is this sense of I? You look and you see if it is a phenomenon. If the sense of I is in the body, then it can be observed. But who is the observer then? Where is that I? The observing must happen from the I, does it not? If you look, And if you get lost in thoughts, you come back to this sense of I. And you ask yourself, who got lost in thoughts? And you find the source of that one. Again and again you come back to this. Question the mind's conclusions of an observer, of a person, the idea of a someone being in a situation. If there is a voice inside that says, this is difficult, or this is easy, to pose the simple question, to whom is it easy, difficult, challenging, too much, too little? What is the source of the experience? What is the I? You may open your eyes, move your body, stretch out your legs if you need to. When you scratch the surface of the experience, and even if you just have a little taste of it, it will be very clear to you that there's more to the experience than the relative external world. If you've seen any change in your sadhana, in your practice, you notice that if fears leave you, the world change. It is not the same. If there is space, if there is love for other, it changes the view of them. The whole idea that is so much in the external of you and other is not real. It has to be upheld. The whole idea of you as a separate person getting into situations that your life is happening must be upheld. This is what shows its unrealness. Because what is must just be, right? If something is, it is. If it needs to be upheld in the intellectual domain, if it needs to be upheld as an idea to exist, it is just an idea, right? So, what falls when you stay as you are? When you stay without distorting, when you stay without picking up things and keeping them, what is left? Does the personality get erased in that? Does the expressions of the body get erased in that? Does the need to eat food and to sleep get erased in that? Many things remain. But what is fictional or imaginary will not. And it does not mean that you cannot fantasize, but you will understand that the fantasy is not real. Most people's lives is fantasizing, hoping for a better future, fantasizing of a situation that is something other than this. Lingering on a past that is already gone, that is just an idea. Upholding, upholding, upholding. So much energy with all this. And you can like the intellectual idea of meditation and of the present moment. But the ego is usually not on board. It wants to continue to have something. And you might say, yes, but I feel very firmly that I can give all these things up, all my beliefs. The idea of identity time and time again. And what happens when you do? When you really stick to your inquiry, when you really stick to the present moment, just in this deep observation, what happens with the mind? I'm sure you tried it in some way. It resists, right? It wants to be part of it. If it feels quiet, the mind feels quiet, the mind would say, oh, it's going great now. My mind is so quiet. This is special. It just wants to be there. Comfort you. Say that it's holding your hand in this. And the next day when you continue it, it starts to be difficult. You get a little headache of it because you concentrated so much on staying aware, and it starts to wear you down a little bit. It will say, oh, it's not going great today. It's difficult. It's a difficult day today. It always wants to create identity, and it wants to create a situation. It wants to continue. And most of us don't realize at all how identified we are with this idea. So when it starts to fade, it feels like I am fading. And we're not ready for that, because we think for our preparation in meditation, you feel like you have a quite good grasp on what awareness is and how to be attentive with your experience. And you feel like I'm more to that side than to the identified ego side. And when the ego starts to lose its grip, it feels like you are losing. It feels like you are stretched too thin. You will say things like, I don't know who I am anymore. You start to feel disoriented, maybe blissful sometimes, but it can just, from the point of view of ego, feel like you're spaced out and weird. And from the ego's point of view, you cannot hold your life together. It says you're losing the grip. You won't be able to do normal things anymore. It will scare you with all this just to stay on board. Everything just happens as it happens. But the ego loves to take credit for all of it. It wants to say, I am doing this, I am doing that. Also on the spiritual path. I'm choosing this now, I feel more like this. This is what I need. All these ideas. And the more you look into it, the more you notice that there is a capacity that is not that voice. That is not this strong voice of choice and decisions. That there is a more subtle voice that guides you. And this becomes an important part in not listening to the mind. Because you will notice that in that there is not resistance, there is not being passive, there is just a naturalness of things. Everyone is tapped into it. Every time you feel like things are just happening as they should happen. And for some people, it can happen in the most, they can be in a very difficult situation. There can be a crisis in the family or around you, and you just tap into that. There is this stillness that guides everything around it. You say the right thing to the right person at the right time, and then everything just moves along because it's needed. And actually, often in these moments where it's really needed, it's usually easier to let the mind step aside and to just go with what is needed. But the mind will come back. And when you did that and everything went great, it will say, I did that. Well done. But it's just happening. And the problem when you go on the spiritual path and the mind gets more silent and you feel more peaceful and it feels easier to be in these flow moments with your surroundings, is that if the ego gets hold of that, it will say, I am great. I am holier than others. I am so in tune with life. All this. It just wants to claim and claim. And it's easy when you don't like the ego. When it says negative things, when it puts you down, you understand that you want to get rid of that. But when it comes on the other end and it says that you are great, that is usually much more difficult. But the beauty with the universe is that it always wants to show you. If you build yourself up, you have a long way to fall. But it just gets very, very harsh. And I just want to clarify that the ego is not really an entity. It's just a repeating pattern. And it lives from identity. And through that it gets energy. It becomes something. But it's just a routinely repeated pattern. And this is also great to understand, that it's very mechanical. It's not something that is alive in that sense. It's just the same old response. And the more you are aware of that repetitive movement, the easier it is to not go with it. Because many of the things that are there, that we observe, they are there for a reason. We are afraid of something, we need the safety of something, we don't want to feel alone, we don't want to feel this or that, and that's how we relate to our egoic mind. And for most people, that are most of their thoughts. 90%, I would say, is just to feel okay and to relate to ourselves. So that's why in the practice the mind gets so much space from the sadhana. There is so easily becomes gaps between the thoughts as soon as you let go of anything connected to the ego. And usually people also try to relate to it. It tries to push it away, try to make the mind silent, try to dissolve things through doing, which sometimes is effective, but most of the time that just creates more mind. The disinterest in mind is the best thing. It's so common when people look into their things, they say, yes, I've been working on this fear a lot, or this trauma, or this thing. But if they're still talking about it, it's still a thing. They might even say, I am done with it. But why is it coming up as something that you have to proclaim that you're done with? Then it means that it's still unresolved. When there is no interest in it at all, that is done. And for most people, you don't even think about it again. It's just gone. There's a space. have so many myths about the mind. So it's so good to recognize what does it mean when the mind is actually done with things. When something is done in the mind, what is that? The proper use of the word karma. What is it to get rid of karma? What is it when something is done? And when you start to look at the world through that, you start to see your response to things and how that continues and creates so much work in the mind. Oh, now this situation arises and this is my response, and then I had to live with my response, which I'm not really happy with, for 2 days. So I'm trying to mentally digest it. I have to write in my diary. I have to talk to my friends. I have to work on this thing because I'm so upset and so triggered by a situation. But when it's non-identified, the response comes in the moment and done. And I think that most people don't even know that that is a possibility. That is a way to be with. If you're completely honest and you just express whatever is expressed and then you can let go, then it's done. And it can take 5 seconds instead of 2 days. We don't understand what we do with our mind. We use it so much as like a pile of garbage, when there can just be space. And it makes such a difference for the quality of your life. Most people just gather things, everything, and they think about the responses and they think about how to relate to it. And that is their whole life. And we're so used to it because everyone does it, so it's just normal. Until you meet someone who does not do it, and they just seem amazing to you. They just seem so spacious and so much at peace. And I often get asked, but what did Swami teach you? He didn't teach me much with words at all. His silence taught me everything. He showed me that you don't have to be identified with things. And there seems to be a lot of peace then, and a lot of space, and a lot of empathy, and a lot of beautiful things. And very little meddling and fixing. Only in the moment. And I saw my guru in many difficult situations, people calling him, having death in the family, and they had to resolve it, and the whole family comes to him and have talks with him of what they're going to do and how to continue with their family, because this uncle died and he had all these qualities and was a very prominent person in their family. And he talks to them and they feel better and they continue their life. Things will still happen in the relative domain, but it's just how much effort you want to put into the idea of I. And to be blinded of that in every situation, to feel like you have to defend this I all the time. In every situation, you might have a sense that people are like attacking you, or whatever sense you have, that you feel unsafe somehow. And then you always have to be with this. You have to watch everything, always be on your toes. That is not a good life. that is tense. That is not freedom. The human potential for freedom is so deep. It's incredibly deep. There's so much of it. And you don't have to listen to others. You don't have to make people your authority. Look for yourself. I don't even want you to have me as your authority. I want you to look. That makes me the most happy if you do. If you have the openness to hear these words, then see what the I is. Break the old bondage of fear. And it's so beautiful when it's revealed. And it won't make you just, we talk so much about acceptance that people sometimes think that you have to accept every behavior, everything. It has nothing to do with that. If you have people close to you that you trust and you have a good relationship with, you can say to them, this is not, you're just talking about your fears all the time. There's more to life than this. Life can be have so much beauty in it. And people talk so much just about distractions, nonsense, non-real things. You can do that a little bit, but at some point you have to talk about the real stuff. You have to be honest. You have to be clear. And it's not always nice, and it's not the most comfortable way, but it does not create karma. All the other things do. When we're walking on eggshells around each other, when we're too afraid to really confront the things that we feel, then they just linger. Linger, linger, linger. Never resolved. Always comes back again and again in the mind. In Zen, sometimes they talk about the sword of truth. Because that's what it does. It cuts. It cuts through all the bullshit. All the runarounds. All the hope for change in your close ones, or that it will be better later, or if I just apply myself, blah, blah. What is happening now? What is, when you're in your relationship to your close ones, what is it in the moment? Not your idea of where it's heading, not your idea of how it's going. What is it? Because you can live on hope, and that can be so brutal. You live on the hope of change always. That is a brutal way to live. And I understand that it can feel too harsh to look at things as they are. To be honest with yourself with your experience, be honest with your relationships. It's difficult, but it also gives a lot of space. And your outer and inner relationships are the same. And some people might ask, but what does meditation really change? What does it do? It changes your world. It changes the world. It changes everything. It gives the possibility of resolve, the possibility of peace, the possibility of being beyond fear. It gives the possibility of a quality life, whatever your resources or your situation might be. It just brings that. And in the qualities of it lies to do the best of the situation because you are present. You're giving the qualities of being present to the moment, to your relationships, to everything in your life. We have to go beyond just surviving our life or enduring it. That is too brutal. And change will always be scary. But it's also the nature of everything. It will always change. No matter how much you want to hold on to something or hope that it never changes, it will always change. And to be in alignment with that is just to be very natural with what is. And the mind can be very, very subtle in keeping things away or holding things in a certain light or a certain attitude towards things. But even these subtle, small tendencies, if you let go of them, it has a profound effect on everything. How you see others, how you relate to them. What are they to you? When you no longer confine them into small ideas, this group or that group, they want this, they want that. And you can just allow them to be as they are. People are just people coming in different situations. And there is also such beauty of meeting them just as they are. And we can have so many ideas of what a person is. And what they represent because of just... I can take an example. I was at my cousin's place and I played... He has 5 children and I played with his daughter Ines. And we were just putting down pieces of a puzzle. And another adult came by and said, "Oh, so they put you on child watch duty," or something like that, that person said. And I just felt nothing of that. I was just meeting another person that I liked, and we did something together. But the ideas that we have are like that. Oh, so you're the babysitter now. Because of the situation. It's not anymore 2 people just relating. And I felt such a freedom from this comment, because I noticed that it was not there. I didn't feel like that at all. I just saw her and we just played. And it's those simple, small things that makes life so beautiful. Otherwise, I would carry the identified burden of being the babysitter for this moment, and could feel sorry for myself for having that role, or whatever idea comes with that. And it's just the freedom of allowing things to be as they are. They don't have that identified burden. And we think that all those small things are normal, those identities, but they're heavy. And it's so easy to identify with. In this situation, maybe it's quite easy to understand that I don't have to identify as a babysitter. But for many people in romantic relationship, they're so identified with the role that it's super difficult to break free from it. But you can always do that, and you can expose yourself in it and your partner if there is trust. And there can be so much space with it. And also be very critical of all the roles that you just assume. You just take them on because your parents acted like that, or you heard of how something should be, and there is no awareness. There's just these mechanical roles that many people take. And since we also think that they're normal, we don't question them. Why would I question something that I look at as completely normal? That is the greatest ignorance we have with our behavior when we completely normalize them. Or we say it has to be like this. Then there is no opening, there is no possibility. Then you know. That is the worst case. It seems like you feel certain, but the worst case is to know. It creates it's so rigid, it's so stiff to know. It's so nice not to know. It relieves you of expectations. It relieves you of all these roles, ideas. Then it can just be allowed to happen. And it can surprise you. over and over. And so many things are possible in that, because the expectations also narrow the possibilities a lot. But how can we see what we don't see? Do you understand the problem of that? How do you know the scope of things when you're living your life from the point of view of you living your life? That's why when I get asked what Swami taught me, he just taught me that you need nothing. All the things that you collect, all the ideas of your person, all the things that you accumulate and put on yourself that you think that you need, you don't need them. Behind all that tightness of the idea of the person, the rigidness of all that is just space. You don't need to keep anything. Or as Papaji beautifully put, thieves cannot steal anything in an empty house. Because the ego comes and wants to sweep you away. It wants to trigger you in something that you find important, believe in, or invested in somehow. It can pose a thought and say, oh, you haven't thought of this. Maybe you should worry about that a little bit. And you're like, oh, yes, that is important. That has to do with my relationships and my family and blah, blah, blah. I really have to worry about this. And it gets you. But if there is nothing, then there is no response to it. It will fall right away. But we think it is important and therefore it can continue. And that is how our ignorance works. That we think that our thoughts are important and that they have to be dealt with all the time. And the more you look, the more you notice that it is not like that. And you can even say to the mind, I don't care. You can be quiet because I don't care. It tries to give you something and you can respond like that and just be with it. Because it all the time just wants to continue. It has no power really. Because it always needs you. It always comes and says, what about this thing? What about this? Would you believe this thought? Today is a good day, it's a nice thought. You want to believe it? Please? It does like that. And when you don't engage with it, there is just space. Because there is no need for it to be. And I understand the satisfaction that you identify with today is a good day and you feel good about that and you play the game of that. But when you see through it, you understand that there is always two sides of that coin. Because it means also that you will suffer when the mind says that this is a bad day. It's always in comparison. It always does this kind of play. And if you believe in the hope of an idea, a hope of your relationship with someone getting better in the future, for example, and then you always have to suffer. The other side of that is that you feel hopelessness when that is proven not to be right. But none of those things are needed. Maybe hope is needed sometimes because you want the relationship to continue and you wouldn't otherwise. But maybe it's also not meant to be then. We play so much on false premises that the actuality of being truthful and authentic with our experience get very, very difficult. We can paint ourselves really into a corner with that. And I hope that there is some possibility in this to just see the mechanics of it. Or at least I see what happens with it when I put it to you. And I hear quite often people say, but my ego is too strong. I'm too invested in it. I don't know how to get out of it. And that's exactly what the ego wants you to feel. It wants to say, to be with these kind of thoughts is unavoidable. That is the ego's dream scenario with you. Because then and if you're completely taken by that, then it got you. And as soon as it fails, as soon as the mind goes into crisis because of the egos always playing this black and white game, for and against everything, try to measure everything, try to compare everything, create so much tension and heaviness that you come to a point where you start to revolt. I don't want to go with you anymore. It's like having a really, really bad friend advising you all the time. That always just changes with whatever is convenient. Oh, you should really do that. And when you do it and you fail, it says, you shouldn't have done that. If you had a friend that acted like that, you would say, I don't want to, you're not my friend. The ego is brutal like that. And the beauty of its brutality is that you get tired of it. So you come here. You start to want peace. Something else. A longing for this deep stillness start to come. This intuitive sense that there is something beyond this. The life cannot just be identifying with thoughts and trying to survive. Trying to keep depression at bay somehow. It has to be more than that. and you are drawn to a certain path around these things. Maybe you're drawn to the path of inquiry and contemplating on purpose of things and happiness and all this. Or you just want to devote yourself. You just want to sing. You want to celebrate the silence behind the experience. It might come and steal your heart away. You start to look at love in a different light. It's not personal anymore. It is just the expression of love. You want to dance with that. You want to sing to it. You want to bow to it. You might not even care about the words anymore. Just to devote yourself to this silence. And these two paths, they need each other. The one who is drawn to the expression of the heart needs to question sometimes the eye. Needs to have that little understanding, to question the ignorance, to question the arrogance. And the one who's good at always reasoning and questioning needs to open the heart, needs to surrender, to come in contact with what love really is. And there are completely different challenges in that. Because you might start to feel like your heart is opening to it. And you start to have feelings like, I love everyone. But from a societal standpoint, that is not a valid way. That is, you can feel too much. You can feel strange. But these are part of the natural. They're natural parts of sadhana. They will just start to happen. You see people fighting, but your first impulse is not to choose sides. It is to understand them. And you come from a place of love. This is very different than coming from a place of wanting to protect oneself. And maybe your mind has habits of condemning certain behavior and certain people, but something has opened in you and you just want to understand. It doesn't mean that you accept all behaviors and that you cannot put clear boundaries if it's needed. It just means that there is no hate. hate is just pushing away what you're afraid of. And hate, if it starts to take hold, it will always come back again and again, because it wants to be resolved. It is unexpressed love. I know I talked about this many times, but the most difficult part is not dealing with your dark sides. It is dealing with your light. Because it embraces everything. The ego has no space there. It cannot place its tricks. You start to observe it and you just allow the dark thoughts of the ego, they can just come. Thoughts of shame and thoughts of wrongdoing or whatever it is, they can just be invited into the light. It just consumes everything. It's so silent, so blissful. And the difficulty is always, am I worthy? Who am I to be this light? Who am I to experience this bliss, the beauty that comes with it? And it goes on all those parts of the identified ego. It starts to make its home in the now. And it burns everything that you are not. Is there any questions today? Yes, take the microphone.
You talked about, excuse me, you talked about the fact that the ego will sort of say these beautiful things about us, the other side of the coin. So it might say that you're such a generous person, you're so good, you're so, all of that. And I feel like I've done a lot of mental noting on on the more negative stuff. So I'm quite quick to notice when there is the critical mind, when there is the complaining mind, all of that. But I guess I haven't. I think, as you said, it's much harder with more positive stuff. And I guess it's also hard sometimes when there is a beautiful quality where the ego jumps in right after. So there can be this just heartfelt feeling to give or to be generous. And it really is a warm and a good feeling. But then the ego sort of tells a story about who I am now as a good spiritual person and all of that. Do you have any sort of practical advice on that, or is it just to be very observant and to note all of these situations where the ego?
Yes.
Because just to add one more thing, I think also the ego, it's not always that it uses words to say you're such a. It's just a in the body. It's sort of that. So it's it sneaks in.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's just a feeling of I am this, and therefore I am good. And it's a good thing to realize about the ego. It doesn't always use words like that. It can just be affirming. It can just like, yes, that was right. You did the right thing, or you did. It like confirms you, but it might not even have those words. There's just a feeling of the sensation of that identification happening. Yes, the difficult thing is that you might have gone through having a primarily negative mind and notice that if I focus on more positive thoughts, this has really helped me in my life. I'm much more positive now than I used to be. So you're really holding on to the idea of that, and to a certain extent that helps people to change from a negative thinking to a positive, just to be aware of it and to actively try to be positive. But the problem comes with identity around it, because also the silent mind is naturally positive. It doesn't need to be affirming like that and holding up positivity. Because as you probably also have noticed, if you meet people who are very much holding on to positivity, even when they really, really suffer or they feel really dark things, they project an image of positivity, like only on the surface, but you sense it so much, like they can be really, really bitter, but they try to project the image of positivity. And that's because it does not come from their silence. It's just a complete identified idea. And that is the problem also with identifying with the idea of being generous, for example. Then it feels like in every situation now, I have to uphold that. I'm carrying around the idea of being a generous person. So when you don't live up to that because you feel in the situation, I don't want to give to this person, this is going to lead to something bad, then you're in a conflict with your idea of being generous. Maybe I should have done that. And you will be like regretful, and you have to. That is how karma works. That is how it creates a continuation of it. That's how the ego creates more stuff. As soon as there is identification, there can be conflict with that. Otherwise, there is just a moment happening, and you felt like giving, or you didn't feel like giving, and it happened. Done. And these things are the things that I want you to look at, because those are the ones that create that change. What is it that creates karma? What is it that creates continuous thoughts and with that actions? So you have to deal with it for a long time, and it lingers. What is it that makes just being done, and that creates so much space? It's so obvious. When we talk about it like this, it's so obvious that just creates silence. And through that silence come the natural bliss of silence, and it comes also the spaciousness that gives room for real connections, listening, everything. I think you know these things, but I'm just being very plain with it, very clear. There's so many positives in meeting your friends or your partner or your loved ones and your family in that space, because then they can also really be seen, and you can allow them to be as they are. And this is the most beautiful, when people talk about if you want to teach someone, if you're with them in presence, that's the most beautiful thing you can give someone. Everyone loves that. Everyone loves to be seen and accepted as they are. That is what love is. And it's so easy to give that if there is space. And if the mind is filled with identified thoughts, it's impossible. Then you do your best. And you try to listen, but you're so occupied with what to answer or, yes, your own agenda, so it becomes difficult. And not also to put if that is your reality, don't put yourself down with it, but just be aware of that is happening, and that the possibility for this spaciousness is there. But it's when it comes to positive thoughts, it's much more difficult to observe them than negative thoughts, of course, because you feel like you have so much to gain to believe in them. That it was create my positive reality now compared to before, when I were more negative. So all things that you are invested in are difficult, but also all the fears that point to things that feel like very crucial for your identity, they can feel almost impossible. If you're very fearful of being alone, for example, then all fears that has to deal with that and how you deal with it feels very important. That also makes you so invested in them. And it's not easy to observe that. It always feels scary, because then in inviting it into the light of awareness is always breaking the patterns, allowing the natural movement of things to happen. So to feel fearful in those situations is also completely normal, because you're breaking old patterns, and maybe sometimes things that has come to you through generations of same behavior. Your parents act like that, and their parents and their grandparents and so on all have had the same behavior. So sometimes you just very much a behavior that is in your family, for example. And when you break that, it feels like you're leaving them behind. It feels like you're going off in a direction where they won't understand you. All these feelings are normal in sadhana. They're not so often normal in society, but they are normal when you do sadhana.
Thank you. It's so beautiful to come here and hear that so much of what you feel is normal here, so to speak, because it can feel like you're almost being a stranger sometimes in the other world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the qualities of what is not very prominent in our society. So they are not normal. But the strange paradox with that is that if you are those qualities, people will find those qualities very attractive. They will say, he or she is such a great listener, or it's so nice to just be in this person's presence, or these kind of things, because they are universal human qualities. They have it's not something that we impose. It's not a thing, really. It's just that we're talking directly about our essential nature. And that is not our essential nature as meditators. It is our essential nature as beings, as everyone's.
Thank you.
Someone else? No? For a long time, when I was practicing the first perhaps 10 years, I didn't understand much about why you would be drawn to like a symbol like Shiva. But as soon as this part of me started to open, that understood that you have to surrender and you have to just this wordless relating, the wordless relating of the heart. When that started to open, I was in Rishikesh, and I remember that I walked past a painting in one alley, a big painting of Shiva, and I just stopped by it, and I just looked and looked and looked and looked, and suddenly it was like the symbol said something to me. It had the quality of godliness, of beingness, of presence. So after that, I started to have this one. And it's beautiful also because you don't get to choose. It just comes to you, whatever works. As the same way teachers come, wisdom comes through the strangest sources sometimes, because it just has to come to you. And also the way Shiva comes when needed. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. If you listen carefully, then you can hear the silence of the world permeating through everything. Giving rise to everything. Giving preciousness to it. Giving love to it. Celebrating the beingness of it through its expressions. It is subtle. You have to listen carefully. It is beyond the surface of the relative, but it's always here. Just go to the source of the I, and you will find it. Not through the intellect, but through your experience. at a certain point in your sadhana, it feels like you should bow to it. But in truth, that bowing is just to yourself. And as I watched my teacher, then when the whole village came to him, everyone wanted to bow and touch his feet. And when the whole line of people were gone, he bowed and touched his own feet. Because it is the same. You and the practice is the same. You and the teacher is the same. You and beingness, same. Om Shanti.